Good morning and welcome to the Sports Desk, streamed on our Facebook page. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, along with our producer, Alden Iwani. Our very special guest today is Las Vegas Athletics Director, my very good friend and the man I call the King of the North, Mr. Richard Tripp. And I'll tell you what, Coach, there's a lot of kings of the North, man. So when I tell you that, that's a high compliment. Welcome to the show, Coach. How are you?
Hey, Ed, man. Well, it's like we were saying. Anytime Ed Nunez calls you to be on the sports desk, man, you jump. You don't say yes. You don't say no. You just say when. It's
Yeah,
that
you
it's
know
that
what?
simple, man. So thanks a lot.
Well, I'll tell you what, Coach, I really appreciate that. You know, you were the former co-host along with Scott Gleddy back in the day, Robert Portnoy back in the day, Alan Key back in the day, Steve Davis co-hosted back in the day. This show has run the gamut, man. You know, you're a former broadcaster with ProView Networks, and the invitation is always open for you to come back and do games. You know, we miss you out there and doing games. You were a play-by-play broadcaster for over 15, 20 years. Won an award on the radio there. And I know you and I talk about it, and I know you miss it. I know you do. But right now, you know, as the athletic director at West Las Vegas, you just mentioned to us before we came on, the fall season is already kind of wrapping up, and behind you is your 3-month calendar starting the winter, fall, and the winter sports, right? The
Right.
basketball, the wrestling, and then when that ends, and you've got cross country track, then you've got to think of the spring baseball, softball. It's a never ending process. We brought you on here today, of course, to talk about the Dons. Last week, the Dons football team ranked number 7, I believe, in the NMOT polls, which you and Manny Lucero do a great job of. Tell us a little bit give us the buzz on West Las Vegas athletics.
Well, Ed, I always appreciate when I get the opportunity to talk about West Las Vegas because it's my alma mater. It's where I came to school. It's where I played. Myself and two other brothers. Everybody's, of course, familiar with Gary. But anytime you get a chance to brag about your school and your student athletes, you take it. And like we always say, there's 100 of them, too many to mention. But that's what motivates us. That's what keeps us. That's what drives us. It's not my office. It's not the coaches. It's not the sports. It's the kids. The kids drive us. And they, like we always say, without them, what are we? Much like officials today. But the thing about with us here, with me, when I took over 7 or 8 years ago, and I left for a couple of years, went over to Highlands and came back, was my goal was always the same, about the kids. And I know a lot of ADs, I know a lot of coaches, I know a lot of people say it. Maybe I'm just one of those that they look at and say, yeah, just another guy saying it's about the kids. But, it has to be. They drive us. They motivate us. They're the reason we coach. They're the reason we're the ADs. They're the reasons officials officiate, et cetera, et cetera. And the bottom line to the whole thing, we can't say enough about whether it's our kids or anybody else's kids, but I'm always proud. Win and losing is always great. You and I were talking, winning's always great. You and I were talking before about winning, back up the U-Haul if you don't get it done, that kind of stuff. But, it is about winning. But we cannot put winning ahead of the kids and what it represents. For me, I see a kid play a basketball game, a football game, a wrestling, run an event in a track team. And I'm not always looking at the outcome, although it's nice. I'm looking at the kid. I'm looking at his facial expressions. We always say when we have our parent meetings, our job here is to give the kids probably the best experience they've had in playing sports. We've had our time. You and I have had our time. Alden had his time. Our producer director over at Cibola, mean safety dude there.
He was.
But I'm very serious when I say it. It's about those kids. It's about what drives us, and it's the kids that drive us. So I'm very proud of our student athletes here. We want to win, but at the end of the day, it's about their experiences that they get out of it, that they leave with it.
Coach Howell, Jared Howell, I had him on from Piedra Vista last week, and he mentioned that too about wins and losses, not so much on the field, but with kids, right? With kids, did we win or lose that one? And he mentioned the losses hurt him more than the wins did, right? The ones that you lost, and sometimes you don't win them
Yeah.
all. But I think
No.
that's the case with kids, and it's important to note, right? Las Vegas is home for you. You've lived there almost all your life. You were a teacher, an educator there, and a coach there, and you've served as athletic director. You've given back a lot to the town of Las Vegas, a lot to West Las Vegas, your alma mater. You're very proud of being a Don as much as I am of being a Highland Hornet, right? I'm very proud of my alma mater. I try to give back as much as I can. So that pride that you have in your school, always, there's not a better guy to be the AD there, right? But and I remember you had me out there in August for a little conference about communication between coaches and officials, and I got a little look at what you do. And we have to remember, you have to communicate with all the coaches. There's upset parents, right? There's bus schedules. There's a lot of responsibilities, everyday responsibilities, right? A lot of fingers to put in leaks, a whole bunch, and then you got one taken care of, then five more spring, and unexpectedly. Talk to us a little bit about how it was with COVID, because you had to deal with that. We're on, we're off, pods of five, pods of six. That was a real challenge. Talk to us a little bit about that.
I remember Sally Marcus calling me midway through the COVID season and telling me, "Gee, Rick, I guess you never thought you'd come back to something like this." And I thought, because that was my first year actually back, and it was crazy, man. Like it was weird taking you back just a couple. Ed, you and I both remember that last day at Santa Ana when we were broadcasting games for the state tournament, and we get this announcement. I think Alden was with us, and we kept getting these announcements: the NMA this, the NMA that, the governor this, the governor that, and all of a sudden, poof, we're walking out of Santa Ana. It's like, well, what do you mean no fans? We still didn't understand it. Then you and I went back to Santa Ana the next day, had to be escorted in and out of Santa Ana to do games. It was weird. But then comes this job, and yeah, it was tricky. Very, very tricky. I mean, we didn't play football. We didn't play none of the fall sports. We finally got into in the winter, and it was just, you could only play teams in your own area. For us, that meant Mora, Robertson, Springer, good schools, officials, dealing with that. Mask, we can never forget mask. We can't forget the hand sanitizing. I mean, we played before no fans, It was a nightmare, but you learned a lot too. We learned a lot about ourselves during that time, even in sports. You take a lot of things for granted, even in sports. And we took a lot for granted during COVID, not having fans. Of course, with schools, if you don't have fans, you don't have money. You don't have money to pay for a lot of things. So it just, the impact of the whole thing set us back, to the point where we had to raise our ticket prices now just to try and catch up. It just raised chaos on every aspect of athletics in high school. It was a nightmare, but it was such a learning experience as well, and because of COVID, we're feeling the aftershock, of things. We're facing that in the way of, when you order equipment these days, like let's say you're going to order football equipment. Man, it used to be 4 to 6 weeks that you get your equipment. Now it's 4 to 6 months, if you're lucky. That whole thing just set everything back, and it just created such a mess, if you will. It's not anybody's fault, but yeah, we're still feeling the effects of it, Ed, and in so many different ways. It was just a crazy, crazy time.
Gary Sanchez, the former Highland coach, football coach and track coach, the Hall of Famer, he was mentioning that to me. He works at Garden Schwartz Team Supplies, and
Right.
And he was saying that too, that all the orders, our helmets, our weight, this was last year, were on back order then, and it's probably the supply chains throughout the world have been bottled up, right? There's still problems with supply chains, and it affects sports. And sometimes people may not see behind the scenes what you have to do. And I remember, gosh, that you mentioned Santa Ana. I don't know why I was thinking about that today, but my son, my son Nick had been following the spread of the virus, right? And he was really worried about me, right? And I remember him texting me, he says, "Dad, there's a case in Catron County," or wherever he saw it, right? "You need to be careful, because there's still fans in Santa Ana when you and I were doing our session, right?"
Right.
And then the next day, boom, there's nothing there. And I remember you and I doing those games, and I had to wait at the door until you came out. And I remember you and I talking about it. It was eerie. No cheerleaders, no whistles, no hey ref, or no sounds. Right? You got the kids on the bench making a lot of noise, but there wasn't the usual sounds of games. You got the whistles, but not the. It was so eerie, kind of weird, right? Surreal. But at least the kids got to play. That was the most important thing.
And that's a credit. I know Sally. We kept hearing things all that day. Sally was on the phone with the governor. Sally was on the phone with health officials. Her whole thing was, we got to figure out a way to finish this tournament. It's not fine. You don't want us to have fans? Fine, we won't have fans. And she fought. And I think I give her and her staff a ton of credit, because I know there were talks. You and I both know there were talks. They were going to shut the whole thing down, because look what happened after the state basketball tournament. There were no spring sports, period. So they allowed the state basketball tournament to finish with no fans, just the officials and so many people. So yeah, I remember that too. You walk in and it's so eerie. Santa Ana is you realize how big it is when you're the only one in there. You could hear the ball bouncing, you could hear the ref, you could hear the coach, you could hear the players. Like you said, it was just such an eerie feeling, man. It was, thank God, that I give Sally a lot of credit going back to that, and her staff, and where we are today. And I think that changed a lot of people's perspective too, Ed, moving forward from that. How when we started having our Zoom meetings with the ADs, how much she kept preaching, guys, get that blue trophy out of your vision right now. Let's get back to playing. Let's get back to, it doesn't matter who we play. Let's just play. You did a game at University Stadium. We had those so-called football playoffs, or whatever they were called. The whole mission was to get the kids back to play.
Right.
And they did it. And whatever happened, we did it. So again, it just, wow, it was a crazy time, man.
Coach, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll give you a chance to boost up more about West Las Vegas athletics after these messages on the sports desk.
Cheshire will set Chris Moore one more time. And the block did the job. Blocked by Carpenter. Kept up. Tough angle. Macias. No, it's dumped over instead by Kirkland. Cheshire. She'll set Chris Moore again. She's blocked again. Carpenter. Cheshire. Chris Moore. Another swing. This time she'll dump it over. Cheshire. She'll set in the middle for Carpenter. And she puts it away. That was the longest rally of the set, and it still goes to the Huskies. 24-14. Set point. Huskies.
But it falls right to the feet of St. Pius. Opportunity here. Vaughn. Spinaroonie. Shot. Score! 1941. Leo Vaughn gets a second.
Panther. He's got Cordova again, and Brody Whitaker blows that play up so fast from the edge. Babinski shut up in a goal.
Tries to dummy it through. It's loose. Opportunity. And it worm burns in.
Cheshire will set Chris Moore. Yes! The freshman connects again.
Out in front. Okay, Rainer with the shots. You get another opportunity here. Can't you crowd?
the middle. Angle coverage. Oh, what a catch! See you later. Turn off the lights. Goodbye, baby. Touchdown.
Pardon me for Lozano. This time, Culpepper. He's got a man. Caught. It's again Tommy Lopez. Lopez breaks a man. And Lopez not stopped at the 3 this time. Tommy Lopez. He's got a huge touchdown.
That snap. Moreno picked it up. Great protection. Going for a home run ball down the middle of the field. It's underthrown. Oh, what a catch! A catch and run for the touchdown for Tregon Williams.
We would like to thank the following sponsors for making this broadcast possible.
Don't sacrifice quality and flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of ProView Sports Network.
We here at Clark's Pet Emporium welcome you to bring in your pets. We know that having your pet with you makes the experience of shopping for them even better. And we welcome you to bring your kids also. Clark's Pet Emporium, your pet's second best friend.
We fight the battles no one hears about. We drop into the middle of firefights to rescue others.
And act as one-man air traffic control towers.
We're the ones who go before all others.
U.S. Air Force Special Warfare are proud supporters of ProView Sports.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Sports Desk, streamed on our Facebook page. Along with producer Alden Iwani, I'm your host, Ed Nunez. Our very special guest today, West Las Vegas Athletic Director and the King of the North himself, Richard Tripp. Coach, again, thanks so much for joining us. And, we talked about in the first hour a little bit about how COVID, it kind of brought back some memories. I hadn't talked about that with you, and I think a lot of people may have erased those COVID memories because it's just 2 years ago, right? It'll be 3 years this March. But I don't know how do we ever forget that, because you mentioned the football playoffs we had at University Stadium playoffs, right? And like you said, New Mexico Athletic Associate Director, the NMAA director out there, Sally Marquez, a position your brother Gary held for many years. It's not easy. She has a lot of responsibility. Your brother had a lot of responsibility to keep it going. There's so many things about kids playing, not playing, should they play. You're right. A lot of people were upset no matter what was done. So those are situations that everybody had to pull together on, and they made it happen, right? The spring sports, unfortunately, in 2020 were canceled. That really hurt when you think about it. We kind of erased it from our memory. Graduating seniors weren't able to play baseball, run track, or play softball. And that would be a like a stake through my heart, man, for me, right? I competed, you competed. And so I don't know that we ever, I don't know what we can do. But in that situation there, everybody did the best job they could.
They did. Then when they finally decided, they pretty much left it up to the schools. And, of course, being in San Miguel County, our numbers were just going through the roof, and both us and Robertson, they do their thing, we do our thing, but we both happened to be on the same page, and we just said it wasn't worth it. Bottom line, we tried it, but it wasn't worth it.
Coach, we got some pictures from the past, blasts from the past here that our producer, Almi Iwani, is and that's when we're all the late Austin Denson is in that picture, and God rest his soul. There's Adam Deal, Sebastian Well, there's you. I'm going to have you take a look.
Josh and the guys, remember that J-Pole? Yeah,
J-Pole.
That's Rio Rancho, you can tell. Oh man, that was
Dana
it.
Christian.
Yeah, that was at Del Norte. Oh, my buddy Adrian. Excuse the red shirt, everybody. Yeah. My girlfriend Cindy there, love her to death. And we were at, we had the what we used to call that, like preseason deal, man. That was awesome, man. That was awesome. Oh, my buddy.
Steve Davis, ProView president Steve Davis.
Yeah, Steve gave me that chance, him along with JD. Man, talk about a throwback.
That was a while back.
Jay Poole didn't even have his stash back then, man. Manny with his long tie. God damn, everybody looked good, man.
The late Tom Dragmeister.
Oh, Tom, rest in peace, dog. You know, Matt, my buddy there, Matt Aguilar, Cindy's son. Hey, Bruce Carver. That was at Rio Rancho. You can tell because of how tight the booth was. Yeah. That was for the playoff game. Bruce and I were actually doing it. The crew again. Hey, man. Josh wearing the shorts, man. I dig it. That was cool, man. HU back in the day. Yeah, there's Justin there. Man, talk about throwback.
Yeah, look at that one. That one is. There's Manny, Dr. Manny Lucero.
Dr. Manny Lucero, NMOT president.
That's right.
Presidente. You know what his radio name is, by the way? It's Casanova. That's what he goes by on the radio. But yeah, I remember that, man.
Another great picture there. There's Joe Abeda, of course, and Adam Deal. And
I have no idea where that one could be, you know.
Yeah, that one's an old one. This one, look at this one. This one, look at Alden. Look how young Alden still looks great, by the way. But there's Joe Abeda and Adam Deal, and I think Matt Apodaca, and
Manny Lucero Jr. in that, and back at Highlands, there's Andrew Ealing. He was just hired as the AD, actually, when that picture was taken. He's been there a couple years. For the weekend.
There's one of our selection shows.
That was for the volleyball, I think, or basketball. Yeah, it was basketball. Everybody was there. Joe Beta from back in the day again, man. God, that's an old crew.
Joe, one of the best people you could ever meet in your life, honest to God.
Yeah.
There's you and I.
Yeah. I remember that one. Yeah, I was at Highlands. Yeah, we were playing in the HU tournament, HU golf thing, and that. Thank God that Adam was on that day, man, because us other three. Well, Ed Manzanares' son really is what carried us.
Here's you and
Josh Brown.
Oh, that's Josh.
Yeah, that's Josh.
Yeah.
You can always tell that Rio Rancho, man. You can always tell that booth. That might have been that day at Santa Ana when we started getting those reports, man.
Right.
I kind of remember that. That's
cool. Anyway, some
right
great photos we wanted to, and great work by our producer, Alden Iwani, who's worked with you for a number of years. And, Coach, we got a few minutes left, and I want to ask you about the prospects of West Las Vegas football. Sapporo #1 in that class. Also, anything you want to talk about too. You've got your cross country, you got your girls volleyball, you've got boys and girls basketball coming up. Talk about your Dons and how are they going to? What's the buzz around the Dons' chances for postseason in football?
Well, our chances are good for football. I was looking at Max Preps right before we came on the air. Right now, we actually went up from 7 to 6, and we didn't even play last week, so that's good. We go to Santa Fe Indian, and then we end up with Robertson next week. We play. I know people might get upset. When you play in the toughest district in your class, you've got to step up your game. I think we do that. Our volleyball team with Stacy Fulgenzi has improved so much over her first 2 years here. We're getting better. We hired a new cross-country coach, Adrian Lucero, former All-American at Highlands, doing great things. Morgan Montano Dennis, Marcus, our girls soccer coach. We can't say enough about the time that they put in. Looking forward to the winter. Well, basketball in the north, is the king. We don't need a shot clock in northern New Mexico, people, I'm telling you. But anyway, so again, it's the toughest district, but more than anything else said, I think again our kids. I'm gonna leave it with this. I ask the coaches to ask our kids or tell our kids two things. Forget about the scoreboard, just play the game and compete. And at the end of the night, all you can do is say, did you or didn't you give it your best? And that's all we ask of our kids. I'm sure every school does the same. I want to see our kids compete at the highest level. I want to see our kids do things the right way. You know, I want to see our kids perform at their very best. You know, and they do. And people get upset sometimes when we don't win, and they say, "Well, what's wrong?" Well, I don't know what's wrong, you know. But at the end of the night, if you like you do, you know, if you understand, if you played sports, if you get it. The kids are out there day in and day out. They're practicing. Kids are not trying to lose the game. They're not playing to lose. They're giving it their all. And I think our kids here at West Las Vegas, I'll put them up against anybody's because I believe in them. I want them to believe in themselves. I want them to have the best experience they could possibly have. But I also want them not to have any regrets. They left it on the field. They left it on the court, regardless of the outcomes. And that's all we ask. Our kids at West Las Vegas are no different than any other kids. They're going to play just as hard as anybody else's kids. And at the end of the night, let the chips fall where they may. You know, so I'm very proud of our school. I'm very proud of our kids.
There are so many things, and again, you've been around athletics for a long time, but it's important to note you're an educator there too, okay? You were an educator,
right.
And that's very, very important. But I look at it like this. I've been around sports for 50 years, right? Over 50 years. And sometimes, and I've officiated, right, for 22, and I've run some of the gamut, coached. We can't always win, right? The ball, okay, to consistently win, right? You got to have the players, the Joes and Jimmies. Coach Wigley said at Gateway Christian, you got to have the players. You got to have a bounce here and there, right? Sometimes it comes down to sheer luck. Now, sometimes it comes to sheer will, right? And then those things come together to win championships, and people don't get it. I've seen it. There's been times when I was officiating a game, like, how did that team lose that game? I'll think to myself, right? How did they lose?
Yeah.
So winning, but I think you mentioned the lessons that we learned as a kid. I'm the worst loser in the world. I hate losing more than I like winning, right? I had to learn, right, that we have to accept that sometimes and move on, and it does build character. We don't want to lose all the time. I'm not saying that. I'm not an advocate of that, but you can't go 35-0 every season. There's going to be some valleys there, and how do you respond to that? That's what makes you the character you ultimately become, and that's why you love kids so much, right? You're developing them. They're doing academics, sports. It's all part of the great circle, man. All part of the great circle.
Kids are champions. You want your kids to be champions. Does that mean blue trophies? It's up to you. Does that mean? I always say this: evaluate your kids this way. This is my thinking. Evaluate your kids 5 to 10 years after they graduated. You know, that might say a little bit more about the individual. You know, we all know it, Ed. You played, I played, all of them played. We all know it. This is just a small moment in their life. It's a pebble in the ocean. Yeah. Their memories are going to last a lifetime. And like you just said, what lessons did you learn to make you a better person? That's all. What lessons did you get out of it? But always remember, you know, this, I guess I can be hardcore and say to the parents, to anybody that thinks winning is everything, well, be careful what you ask for. Because we've had kids that have won blue trophies and were the best at their craft, and no disrespect, but what happened? We've got to stay on our kids and continue to motivate them to understand, Ed, to my opinion, that there's more in life than sports. The lessons that are learned, how you overcome adversity. Yes, we want to win. Yes, we want to fill with blue trophies. But it's called perspective. And at the end of the day, one last final thing. Parents, everybody, fans, come to a game, cheer for your kid, cheer for those kids, pay your $5, whatever it is. Just have a good time. That's it. Kids, continue to do your best.
Make it a good experience. I think that's the best message we can end with. West Las Vegas Athletic Director, my very good friend, the King of the North, Richard Tripp. Thanks so much for being our guest today on the Sports Desk. We sure appreciate it.
Guys, Alden, Ed, you guys rock, baby. Thank you very much.
For producer Alden Niawani, I'm Ed Nunez. We'll see you next week on the Sports Desk.